Hello, everyone, and welcome to our next Fireside chat, which is with Silver Corp. Silver Corp is a low-cost silver-producing Canadian mining company with multiple mines in China. The company's goal is to continuously create healthy returns to shareholders through efficient management, organic growth, and the acquisition of profitable projects. And speaking with us today on behalf of Silver Corp is the company's Vice President, Lon Shaver. Welcome, Lon.
Thanks, Ryan. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so why don't we just open up the conversation? If you could just give the audience a recap of what 2020 looked like for the company and how 2021 is shaping up so far.
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously, 2020 has been a strange year for us, as it's been for many in the mining sector. Both the challenges related to COVID, but then also, participating in a bit of a renewed focus in precious metals. For us, it was clearly a tough beginning, that first quarter, just given the fact that with the operations in China and the government mandated extended Chinese New Year shutdown, that meant that our typical 2-week shutdown became effectively pretty much a 6-week shutdown. I remember this time last year to be coming to the conference in Florida, just grateful that people were back in and we were starting that ramp up phase in terms of getting back to production after that shutdown. But really, if you look at it, March was also a slow month in terms of ramp up, and really we were fortunate though on April 1st back to be pretty much at full capacity for what was the start of our fiscal 2021. That kind of led to the rest of the year where we were back to business, obviously adjusting to different circumstances. We were able to get involved in terms of a review and a negotiation with Guyana Goldfields. We had 2 agreed offers to buy the company. But then that was all done, during this COVID timeframe. But then when Zijin came in and put up an offer that was effectively 3 times our initial proposal, we declined to match that, took our break fee and took the profit on our toehold and went on to other projects. In China, we effectively had a new discovery at Ying, which led to an expanded drill program at Ying. Looking for a new type of mineralization that we think can host gold and provide a new opportunity for those mines. But it also led us to looking at results and realizing that there was some traditional mineralization. So the silver, lead, zinc that we're mining were certain areas that had been hit, and there were indications of material, but it was never fully found and never brought into the mine plan. We're back looking at that as well. On Corp Dev, we haven't had cross-border travel, but the pace of reviews has continued, with a high intensity, both inside and outside of China, and we'll talk a bit more about that later, I think. Another notable thing for the year was with the renewed focus on ESG. The company put out our inaugural sustainability report for last year. And that, as a positive development, we're going to be putting another one out for this year. And we also announced late in the year that the few remaining mines that we had that didn't have it now have gotten the official green mine certification from the Chinese government. And this is an important thing to actually be able to operate in China. Updated Ying technical report, which you saw, where we effectively replaced reserves. More news coming on that. And I'd say generally towards the end of the year, we were putting in place and planning for growth, which I think we've shown so far in the beginning of 2021, where those some of those areas can come from. And I think we'll have some more news on that, as we go forward.
Perfect. That's a really good summary, and appreciate that. So in January of this year, the company announced that it won an auction to acquire the Zhangyi Silver Project, which is located near your flagship Ying mine. So if you could just provide us with an overview of that asset and that acquisition.
Yeah, sure. That was, and we could probably bring up the first of the slides as we talk to it. That acquisition was a project that was held by the provincial government. There had been previous work done on it. It was determined that it would be put up for sale, and in a move to increase, transparency for the process, it was done via an online auction, and we were the winning bidder in December, but we had to pass a few hurdles before we could announce it. And effectively, we've acquired the rights to the project for a $76 million payment in US dollars. But what we are only required to do is to put 20% down once we have the transfer of the mineral rights and the contract, which we're anticipating shortly. Just some more sort of government reviews that are taking place. But what's really interesting and exciting about this, you can see here on this slide at the bottom are the claims or the concessions that comprise our Ying mine, and you can see up on the upper right the Zhonghe claim package, which is approximately 5 kilometers squared, 50 kilometers from Ying, and 75 kilometers by road. And so what we've been doing is scaling up the team at Ying to manage and advance the project. And what we're looking to do here is to embark on a 200,000 meter drill campaign that would be what would be required to bring the project up to a reserve categorization that we could apply for a mining permit. I think it's interesting to note that we're, through this whole process of getting into the bidding, we've had support from the government, approval for us to be a bidder. And, it's important also to note that given that the balance of this payment is only due and payable when we get the mining license and over the life of the mining license, we see those terms are as being favorable and very constructive towards, a collaborative grant for that mining permit. Now, if you go to the next slide, we'll touch a little bit on some of the past work. So this sort of windows in, it's effectively been drilled and explored effectively along the full length of the strike length, which is around the 5 kilometers. And there's been drilling and trenching along this structure. Sort of shallow holes, deep holes, and different zones along along strike. And what we're seeing is really there's a lot of parallels to our SGX line. So a fairly steeply dipping structure, and the mineralization is very similar in terms of silver, lead, and zinc. Next slide, we can show a few of the intercepts, and you can see there we've got some real standout numbers, in terms of almost 1.4 kilos. Similar types of widths that we see at Ying, so comfortable with that. Going down, in the 800, 900s, and those intercepts as well. Some are shallower and some are deeper. And then right-hand side is an example of a cross section for the project. Really, the game plan here is over the next 2 years is to drill that 200,000 meters, put together a resource statement and application for a mining license. Once we would get that mining license, initial plan would be to target some of the higher grade areas and truck that ore to the Ying facility, which we're also looking to expand for this and for some other growth opportunities. While we would then look to building a mill and processing facility on site at Zhonghe.
That's a really good summary of that acquisition and of that project, and looking forward to tracking the work as that progresses. And it sounds like the deal is structured in a good way where you can get some assurance around the project before you have to pay the full price. So that's great.
Yeah, I think I'd also add that in the district, there's other projects that we anticipate could come available as well. And so we're as our team in China have been reviewing and going over and getting prepared for this bidding process, we've also been looking at other projects that we think will be made available on a similar basis.
Okay, great. And just sticking on the sort of acquisition theme, in February, the company announced that it was acquiring the La Yesca silver project down in Mexico. So if you want to step us through an overview of that transaction.
Yeah, this was an opportunity that was introduced to us by vendors who own these claims in Mexico. Really weren't prepared to sell them outright at the valuation that we were prepared to pay. So what we agreed to do was to acquire between Silvercorp and some insider team to acquire 55% of it and leave the vendors with a stake in a new company that we've formed, which is called New Infinity. And what really exciting about this is the work that was done, the evidence, and also where it's located. So you can see here we're actually in the state of Nayarit, in the southeast corner. But as you window in on the project and see La Yesca there in the middle, you can also see some other projects that I think you're familiar with, being Gold's projects, which are quite close, but they just happen to be across the border in the neighboring state of Jalisco.
Perfect.
And
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, if you want to move to the next slide, and we'll talk a little bit about what's really attracted us to this project. So the previous work, as I said, they had done some work on this. There's a roughly 7.5 kilometer geochem anomaly. They've done some trenching. They've done 25 drill holes, which, interesting, were all drilled vertically, and mainly into this, what is the southeast portion of this 7.5 kilometer trend. And we've gone back looking at the results. Each of those 25 drill holes hit mineralization, and some of them hit multiple intervals. They, on their own, had come up with a resource calculation for the project, hence why they were looking for a high price on it. We've agreed to drive ahead in this model, do confirmatory work, and that's what our game plan is here going forward. On the next slide, just touches on some of the drill holes. Actually, the next 3 slides, you can see one we've highlighted here, 5 meters, 450, other 5 meters of 672 grams of silver. Next slide, a few more highlights. There's a 3.3 meter interval at 744 grams. Next page, please. Here, there's a few different intervals, 6 meters, 388, another 6.5 at 725. See, these are all great intercepts, but what also makes this a very interesting opportunity for us, and where we're bringing our geological expertise to bear, is on the next page. What you can see here on the upper right-hand side, there's this TC 741. As well as that BT 742. That's effectively a surface trench. And what the previous operators did, and then stepped out and drilled some holes, which you can see here, are roughly vertical to the left of that trench, and they hit mineralization. And their hypothesis is that this is a shallowly dipping horizontal structure. And the work that we've done, looking at the mineralization, looking at the core, we actually think that these are more subvertical structures. So each one of those hits could represent a different structure within a broad mineralized zone. So that's what has us very excited. Also, combination with those grades. So we're working to get a drilling permit put together so that we can be drilling that. And our game plan is to do 10,000 meters here on an initial program, and the intention is to take this company public with us having a strong stake later this year.
Perfect. Just sticking on the acquisition theme, obviously you've been pretty busy on the corporate development front over the past 12 months or so. You touched on it in your opening remarks that you made an attempted acquisition of Guyana Goldfields last summer. Can you maybe just walk us through your thinking there, and as it relates to potentially looking at larger opportunities like Guyana, or is the pipeline pretty full with these 2 projects that we just talked about there?
No, we're really not intending on letting up in any way in terms of the review efforts. And as you've got to look at a lot of projects to find things that meet your criteria. So no, we're still aggressively reviewing lots of projects around the world, and if we find something we like, we'll make it work.
Perfect. And that sort of ties into my next question here. You've got $204 million in cash, I think, as of your last reported financial statements. You've also got the New Pacific investment as well on top of that. So if you could just, talk about how you're thinking about capital allocation. Are you happy to kind of just keep the powder dry as you continue looking for these opportunities?
Yeah, I'd say it's generally to keep the powder dry. Obviously, some of these opportunities we've talked about will require some capital, but we're planning on being disciplined, with respect to that, and continue to look at other opportunities like a Guyana or some of these other growth assets that we could add into the pipeline or into the portfolio.
Okay, good. And another thing that you touched on in your opening remarks was just some of the gold discoveries that you've encountered at Ying. If you just want to talk about a little bit more about those and what the current thinking is as it relates to those discoveries.
Yeah, well, the drilling program began last summer, and it was really based on the fact that there was a different structure that had been identified within some of the tunnels at the Ying mines, and so that basically kicked off a drill program at Ying. We currently have 65 rigs drilling at Ying, and in addition, we have another 10 drilling at GC. We've had some news flow come out in relation to that, and you can see here some of the highlights that we've announced for some of the mines. In fact, the first announcement was for drilling at our DCG project, which we're currently ramping over and intend to bring on as our 7th mine in the district. But then you can see these other intersections that produce some interesting gold hits within the LME, LMW, and HPG mines. And so this drilling is going to continue given the rigs and given the work that's being done. We're also intending on putting out an updated 43-101 for year-end results. Factor in some of this drilling, but it will continue. We're budgeting to do another 200,000 meters of drilling at Ying in our fiscal 2022. And probably another 50,000 meters at GC. And then I think what the objective is on the next slide, if we take the LMW results, actually, this is just showing some of the hits that we have with the previous page showing that 723. But you can see there, these are all interesting results from a gold standpoint. Some of them do coincide with traditional silver, lead, zinc mineralization. Some of them are, barren of the silver mineralization and are just gold. But what the objective here is on the next slide is that you can see a cross section where some of these holes have hit. And the work that's being done is to tighten up the drilling pattern in these zones and get our mining team to work on a mine plan that would be tailored to go and bring those into production. And so expect to speak to that in the resource reserve statement that we're planning here towards the end of Q2. But then later in the year, hope to be able to speak to more concrete details about a mine plan and what this could do for our production profile.
Perfect. Maybe if you could just touch on your investment in New Pacific. Silvercorp's obviously a large shareholder there. Just give us an update on that project and your thinking around that investment.
Yeah, I think the short answer is we're a happy, supportive shareholder. The company's got independent, capable management. They're advancing the company on a standalone basis. Certainly watching for that. The game plan there is to complete a PEA this year. And then, with respect to our options down the road, there's a few main ones. I mean, we could always find a way of merging with New Pacific and acquiring the balance that we don't own. We own just shy of 29%. If somebody else sees a different value and that exceeds ours, we could tender our position and take our gain in terms of a third party offer coming for the company. And another option would be to potentially dividend our stake out to Silvercorp shareholders as a way of distributing that value and allowing the company to remain an independent, autonomous company. But right now, at this point, it's not necessary to think too far ahead. Let them do their work. Let them, provide the news and information that people need to make, reasoned decisions.
Perfect. Going back to the Guyana Goldfields attempted acquisition in the summer. Obviously, your name is Silvercorp. You've got silver in the name. You produce a lot of silver and get there's a lot of silver in your revenue mix. Guyana was a gold asset. Can you maybe just talk about how you think about these acquisitions? Are you targeting a certain revenue mix? Are you dedicated to silver? If you could just give us a few words on how you think about that.
Yeah, we're not targeting a specific revenue mix other than to say that the focus is to be a precious metals company. So currently our last quarter, we were 60% silver and gold. I think the objective going forward is to maintain or increase that weighting. And whether it's silver or gold, I think it's going to be driven more by what are the most attractive projects that we can see that from a business sense allow us to generate profits and margins being a precious metals company. And if those projects bring credits in base metals like our existing mines in China, that's fine. There's no issue with that. But we're really aiming for precious metals dominant revenue streams in these new growth opportunities.
Great. And maybe you talked about how COVID, obviously it sort of hit China earlier. Before it started spreading across the world and how it impacted the operations. Can you just give us an update on where things stand in China today and what sort of things you've had to put in place at the various mine sites?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of at the sites at the time, certainly had to put in screening, monitoring to be able to bring people back and testing, a variety of ways of testing to make sure that people are healthy. That's continued. I'd say China's done a better job than many other countries since then in terms of managing. And in many ways, life has gone back to normal. Where things have popped up in terms of different pockets, the government's responded, quickly in terms of identifying, those areas. There is extensive screening. Most recently, over Chinese New Year, the government really requested. It wasn't a mandate. It was requested that people not travel if not necessary. So for the first time in many years, Beijing was actually quite crowded over Chinese New Year. With respect to our operations, some people did go back home for the holidays. Some people left early to beat the rush, but some opted not to. So I think it's a more balanced year in this way. And all indications that there's no real crisis, brewing in terms of within the company or within the country even. So I'd say things have been going quite smoothly. As our workers have been coming back, we've again had mandatory testing before people could be back in and back on site. And I think that's going to be a new way of operating for us as well as maybe other companies going forward.
That's good to hear. Just the last prepared question I have here, we only got about a minute left. So in 2014, the company suspended operations at its BYP mine. Is there any updates there, or should we sort of think of that as a non-core asset at this point? If you could just touch on that.
Yeah, it's taken a lot longer, but some of the issues that have been related to land use and some of the borders and boundary aspects of both our project and other land use within the area have finally appeared to be resolved. What we're waiting for is some of the new news and some of these new boundaries to get updated within an official system. In parallel, we've embarked on what's a more typical EIA process. And so we're actually anticipating to get the permit to bring that back as a gold operation later this year. So after being fairly quiet on that for quite a while, as you know, there's some hope and optimism that we'll be able to move forward later this year with that.
Great. We'll keep an eye out for that. I think that puts us right at the end of time, but that's a really good update. Appreciate your time, and hope the rest of the conference goes well for you.
That's great. Thanks very much, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.